everybody, this is Candy from Handmade by Candy, and I am so excited to be back. Full disclosure, this is my second time recording this podcast. I did it all in one clip the last time, and it was too big of a file for my phone to cooperate, to transfer, for me to edit. So I'm doing this again. Probably for the best, because since I recorded 14 hours ago, I have another finished object. So we will go ahead and just go from here and call it a do-over. And I have also casted out something else on. So anyways, like I said, Handmade by Candy. You can find me on all of the things, Instagram, Ravelry, BlueSky as well, all at the Handmade by Candy. If you're new here, hi, welcome. Thank you so much for watching. I have been less than consistent in the past. I'm trying to do better, aiming for once a month at the end of the month. And this is your March review of what I've gotten up to. You may hear some doggy or kitty noises in the background. It's just a part of life here, but I do apologize in advance if you hear any of that. I also have the baby monitor next to me turned down, but that way I can see if my son wakes up from his nap, which also means I have to kind of be quick about this. But yeah, my husband took our daughter to a birthday party, so it's just me and the little bam today, well, at least for a couple hours. So I'm trying to squeeze this in while the house is quiet. You can go ahead and jump on in to finished objects, and I have 3. A couple you might expect, and one's a total surprise. So the first thing that I finished in the month of March is my Arco Iris sweater. Very excited about this. You can see the cable details at the neckline. I have washed, blocked, trimmed ends. The fuzzy guys are the ends, the sleeves, and I did helical knitting to try and mitigate pooling. As you can see, that didn't necessarily work, but it's all right. I like it. This is, like I said, Arco Iris by Locatelli. I used, and I'm going to grab my iPad here because it's got all of my notes. I used Western Sky Knits Merino DK in Mermaid. It's the colorway. And I knit the size 2. I was bang on gauge when I did my gauge swatch. I have not remeasured my gauge, but it looks and feels the same. So we'll go with it. I used 2.79 skeins. Now, the Western Sky Knits Merino DK is 115 gram skeins, so they are a little on the heavier side, and I used less than 3. So that's exciting. 320 grams towards my yardage used for the year, and this yarn dates back to please hold. I acquired it in 2018. So this yarn is almost 8 years old and it is finally knit into something. I finished it while my mom was here visiting and she absolutely loves the colors. So I think I know what I'm going to use the leftovers. Well, I don't know what I'm going to knit with the leftovers, but I know who it's going to. I do have a skein and a little bit left, so I'm thinking a cowl because it's more than I would need for a hat. But I could definitely get a cowl out of that. Nice plain to play with the colors maybe, or some very simple texture. I will put in some B-roll if I haven't already. I point out in there like where my belly button is so you can kind of get an idea of how it's fitting on my torso and how far beyond my natural waist it goes. This, I did add 1 inch of length to the body before doing the recommended length of cable dripping at the bottom. And I will say when I tried this on before blocking, I was nervous. I was terrified that the sleeves were going to be too snug because they were fitted. And I know Hohi Locatelli's patterns, just like, because I've also done like the worsted boxy, they tend to be a tighter fit, but not as tight as this came out to be, which I found strange since my gauge was spot on, but maybe I just got chunkier. I don't know, whatever these muscles are. Not muscles, it's flab. Come on, guys, it's flabby. So when I went to block this, I aggressively stretched out the sleeves. And I will say that the bind off, I just did a standard bind off. I did it loose, but probably not loose enough. So it fits, but it's not the absolute most comfortable because I do notice the sleeve hem or sleeve bind off. It lands like right in my elbow. Like you'll see this on the B-roll. But the good news, if you want to, I like to think of it this way, is that while yes, it is significantly more ease, but this makes an absolutely adorable dress for my daughter. So yes, it's baggier on her than it would be ideally, you know, if I were to have intentionally made it for her, but it looks so darn cute on her. So if I ultimately decide that I don't want to keep this for myself, it will fit her, and it will fit her for a very long time. So that is finished object number 1. Finished object number 2 is, can you guess? The Boucle Blanket. I am so happy this is done. I took out the stitch marker that marked where I was last because, like I said, I filmed all this already and then learned that the file was too big. So I was halfway through this, this color right here. Little under half, little over half, right about halfway on this color right here, French Kitten. And so I have, in the month of March, finished French Kitten, finished this color, which I believe is called Peaches and Cream, and trying to get my iPad to load the project page. Hi, kitty cat. And then this is Barley from a Homespun house. I have talked about this blanket at length, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this here. I finished this March 25th, so today is March 28th. Been on a finishing kick, let me tell you. I started this last January, so I wanted it done because I have other blankets I want to make, and I cannot bring myself to have more than one blanket on my needles at a time. So the pattern, I loosely followed the Cozy Comfort Throw by a Homespun house, and by loosely followed, I mean, I don't even think I did the stitch count that's recommended, but I did the slipped stitch at the beginning, at the end / beginning of each row. And yeah, I did not add an I-cord border. I did not add any kind of border. I used a 4.5 millimeter. That is not something I talked about on the Arco Iris. I used the recommended needles from the pattern. I'm not going to go back and look that up, guys, sorry. But I used a 4.5 millimeter needle on this blanket. It is big, like this is a quarter of it. This is the full width of it, barely in frame here, and then this is folded in half. Kitty cat for reference. So it's going to be a great, cozy, comfortable blanket. Nice pun. And it's going to work with me because that kitty cat that has crossed the path has already snagged and ripped the yarn once. So this is going to work with me. It's going to live there and keep me warm in my office. Where was I? Oh, what I was saying was each one of these skeins, except for I cannot speak to the first skein because I did not weigh it beforehand, but the other 8 skeins that are in this blanket all came way over grams. Like they're supposed to be 100-gram skeins. They were all 10+ grams more than that. So I ended up with a decent amount of leftovers, but I'm counting the entire 9 skeins used because I have zero intention on using the leftovers for anything else. I will probably take them to work and have them there in case I get a hole in this blanket. So that way I have something I can mend it and just keep it for mending purposes, since this does so easily snag. But I have zero intention of using them for anything else, so I'm counting all 9 skeins used. So 900, technically more than that, grams are out of stash from this blanket. But like I said, I've talked about this blanket at length before. So the other dyers besides a Homespun house is Chelsea Luxe. That's where this peaches and cream color came from. And then these 2 colors right here, the bluey, tealy, greeny, and the gray, are a Periwinkle sheep. And these are all Merino DK, Merino DK Boucle. She's done. And I never have to stitch with it again. It's not the worst thing, Boucle yarn, to knit with, but it's not my favorite either. It's also not my least favorite. But it's close. Finished object number 2. We're at a decent amount of yardage used, right? 320 grams knit up so far. The final final finished object I have for you today is one you haven't seen, because I started this project on March the 6th and I finished literally Kitchenered the final toe right before I hit record. So I have a finished pair of socks, and I am so, like, this is just proof I have both done. But I played a little bit of yarn chicken on my cast on, only having that much left, and a little bit of yarn chicken with my tail to weave in, but it's fine. It's socks. They're gonna get whatever. But yeah, I have a finished pair of socks. This yarn is also from a Homespun house, soft sock in the colorway Happy Birthday Luna. I have had this yarn since, it's not the one I meant to click on, 2024. So I've had this yarn just shy of 2 years. Like next week would be its 2-year birthday. So Happy Birthday Luna. Not my traditional colors, but when she did the birthday yarns, they were kind of mystery. Like you got like an inspiration picture, but you didn't know like the actual yarn you were buying. So not something I would have ordered myself, but I do love it, especially in sock form. The pattern I used is Vanilla Socks on 9-inch circular by the Crazy Sock Lady. I did them to pattern with one major change, but I will talk about that when I get there. So you start with the ribbing. I did the recommended rows, and then I did the recommended rows for the leg, which she has the pattern at 60 rows. Then you do your heel flap, your gusset, or heel flap, heel turn, you pick up your stitches and you decrease. All pretty normal so far, except I decreased down from 64 up here to 56 down here because my calf is bigger than my foot circumference by about an inch. So I figured that was going to be the best way to go about it. And I'm not sad I made that call when I finished the first sock. I tried it on, it fits fine, but I realized I probably don't need as tall of a leg, and therefore I could cut rows here, but if I cut rows here, I also probably don't need 64 stitches either. So my next pair, because I do plan on making another pair, I think I will start with 60 stitches and cut out 20 rows of the leg. So it would end up being more like that lengthwise. Obviously it wouldn't have the folded cuff, but it would kind of balance it more because I only added like 30 rows after I finished decreasing before I did the toe. So I think cutting the leg stitch row count will kind of help it be a more balanced sock. But yeah, that's my plan for next time. I would totally reknit this pattern. The instructions were great. I can easily make that modification based on just how the pattern's written. Really, really easy. I may have to get a little creative on the like heel turn instructions since the stitch count will be anyways, a problem for future candy. But yeah, I need a pair of socks and they fit and they will get used. I just am aiming for a perfect fit, so I know what my perfect fit sock is. So I do think my next pair will be vanilla, and then I'll branch out from there. So 3 finished objects, and both socks used 64 grams because I have tiny feet. So I have enough yarn left to make an entire other sock. I might look at shorties, but I worry I might run out. Maybe if I did a different heel, or there's some skimmer socks. I'm getting off track, but I have enough yarn. I could do an entire 3rd sock, but maybe just a partial sock with like a contrast cuff and toe or something. There's an idea. So anyways, finished objects, all set. Okay, I'm back. So all that being said, my finished objects totaled out to 1,284 grams of yarn used in the month of March. Woohoo! Go me! Now, if you watched my last episode, I talked about my yarn goals. I had set what turned out to be an awfully low bar to knit 3,600 grams in 2026, and to have at least 2,600 of those be from yarn purchased prior to January 1st of this year. Adding the 1,284 grams from the month of March to my January and February numbers, I have knit a total, or crocheted, I did some crochet, I have used a total of 2,984 grams of yarn. That's awesome, right? It's also all yarn purchased prior to January 1st, 2026. So I've already met like the partial goal. The overall goal seems attainable, a little too attainable. So my tentative plan is to double my goals and have my revised for the year goal be 7,200 grams total, which is an average of 600 a month. So I can have, since I had a good month this month and last month was a good month if I remember correctly, those will kind of balance out months where maybe I don't get as much yarn time in. So that's the new goal, 7,200 grams for 2026, with at least 5,200 of those being from like old stash purchased prior to 2026. So I think that's a slightly more realistic goal, at least based on my crafting so far, and we'll see how it all shakes out. We're gonna move on to my one active whip because I did not touch my All of the Lights cardigan by Locatelli. Didn't touch it. I put the needle tips back on it, but I did not touch it. It's technically hibernating. I will get around to it. I still want it, but at least for the time being, it's not speaking to me. It might speak to me in a week. It might speak to me in a month. Right now, it's not speaking to me, so it's gonna hang out and chill. And it won't be really talked about here unless I do work on it. I did get work done on my Ziggy Interrupted. So this is my crochet update for the month. When we last spoke, if you watched my prior video, I was here at this stitch marker. That's not right, there it is. So in this second pink band, these two pinks are very similar in color, but I was in the second pink band of this chevron section. I have finished the final chevron section. So I have just, because it's the same on the other end, the 3 rows of squares to do. So I have 17 full squares and 2 half squares left. And then the body of this wrap is done. So this is Ziggy Interrupted, as a refresher, in case you're new, by Sandra Paul, or yeah, Sandra Paul. She has like a business name that is not coming to me, something to do with cherries. But Sandra Paul, the yarn I'm using is Northern Bee Studio Sturdy Sock in a 5 skein pack that was called the Bee's Knees. The individual colors did not have names, but it is a merino nylon base. So I took a moment before I started filming today and weighed the partials that I have left now that I have done the bulk, and I just have the little squares left. And 3 of the 5 I am down to 33 grams, and the other 2 I have about 43. So some decent yardage left. But I also plan to add tassels here. But I'm thinking, while these colors might not be my dream for a wrap, shawl, scarf, I'm obviously going to finish this because it deserves to be finished, because it is beautiful. It's just not my jam. Even though I like all of the colors, I can't explain it. I don't have to. I'm thinking I may consider doing some stripy socks, because why not? I have the leftover, and the yarn is 80% merino and 20% nylon. So I could, but I'm not gonna like rush into doing that. The yarn is from 2020, so when I do finish this, it will count for all of the things. Talked about this at length as well, so I'm not gonna really talk too much more about it here, but we are getting closer and closer to being done, and that's very, very exciting. I started this in March of 2020. It's due, it's ready to be done. Just like the blanket, it's ready to be done. So that is my last whip. I have one cast on to show you. And it's not the one I had planned on doing. It's not the cast on I planned, but it's the cast on I got. So this is going to be Brume by Andrea Mowry. I will put a picture up on the screen in a kind of sort of similar color to her version. Yeah, okay. Anyways, I've not gotten very far. I've casted on the collar. I'm making the size 2. It's a size 2 kind of moment. This, I wound the yarn. I wound all 5 skeins of this. This is Sewrella Yarns Woolly, W-O-O-L-E-Y. Sorry, W-O-O-L-L-Y. Go me. They are 50 gram skeins, though all of mine weighed more than that by a gram or 5. It's 90% superwash merino and 10% nylon. 164 yards to the 50 grams. It's considered a sport weight, but because of its fluff, like, I'm throwing my project, you can see that, like, definitely, like, the inner core is, the inner core might be sport weight, but the fluff makes it really versatile. And look at my cute little stitch stoppers, my little alpacas. Aren't they adorable? I got them from Etsy. I'll try to remember to link the shop below. My cute little alpacas. So yeah, not a whole lot to talk about here. Brume, cast on. I did not gauge swatch. I'm a rebel. What I have come to learn is that when I gauge swatch, I either meet Andrea Mowry's gauge with the recommended needle, or I don't, but when I block it, I do. So I figured I'd wing it this is supposed to be oversized. So if it ends up less oversized, oh darn. If it ends up more oversized, oh darn. I really don't care. But this is a very pretty, the colorway is French Press. It's a very pretty like deep blue from the Sewrella Coffee House collection. And I'm not in love with knitting with it. It knits up fast because of the nature of it. But it has no elasticity. It is what it is. So tensioning it is different than I'm used to. Kind of like working with like pure silk or straight linen, because it doesn't have the wool and the springiness. I mean, it has the wool because that's what the fluff is, but it's not spun wool. So it's the nylon doesn't have that give and take. So working with it has been a different experience. I'm not going to say I hate it, but it's definitely not my favorite. So honestly worse than Boucle. So far. Once I think, I'm technically ribbing, and I think that's part of the problem. Once I am in the like just knitting, because this is a stockinette sweater, it's the yarn that gives it the fun texture. I think once I get to the just knitting part, it won't be so bad because I'm not having to bring it back and forth and back and forth. I will just be going around in circles. But yeah, Brume by Andrea Mowry. I had intended on casting on a mini mock neck tank, but I tore apart all of my stash and could not find my leftovers that I wanted to use for that. So I'm thinking they're in my office. Why are they in my office, you ask? Because I took a box of leftovers when I was attempting to make a Penguono by Stephen West. I've since frogged that project because it's just not for me, but all of the yarn for it is still at work. So I'm hoping that because it was going to be made out of all my leftovers, that's where those leftovers are. I will discover that on Monday. But that is my new cast on. I have intentions, like the things I'm gonna make or cast on next. Obviously, we've already talked about it. New pair of socks. And at least the baby blanket. And to refresh, or in case you're new, I'm going to use Queensland Rainbow Cake. I got the colorway Ivy. It's not just so much fun. I got permission from the mama to go with the rainbow. They are finding out the gender, but I don't know it. And I cleared this with her before. It's 100% cotton, so she'll be able to wash it and dry it and do all the things with it. I'm gonna look on my Ravelry real quick because I don't remember the pattern I'm using. It's not a blanket pattern. I'm going to use, it's called the Chevron Cloud by Espace Tricot. That might be more accurate. Looks French. It's a free pattern on Ravelry, and it looks to be just a gorgeous shawl that is, it's written to be stripes of mohair and a non-mohair, but I found one of the people who had made it added repeats and used this yarn to make a baby blanket. And I was like, I'm gonna copy them. That's a fantastic idea. It looks really cool. So I'm gonna be casting this on very, very soon. If not today, we'll see. We'll see. But that's my next. That and socks are definitely gonna be cast on for sure in the next few days. Okay, last bit of this podcast is going to be a shorter one, probably for the best. I got a little rambly in my first recording of it, also probably why this is going to end up shorter, because I've already done this once. But the last thing I have to show and tell is my acquisitions. So and this is technically not all of it, but all the rest of it has been buried in the stash that got completely reorganized trying to find those leftovers. I will insert a clip at the end of this showing the chaos that was my stash that I sorted through and completely reorganized. You only see the before, you don't get to see the after, so I'm sorry for that, but just know that it looks a lot better now. At the time I recorded that clip, I was not convinced it was going to be a task I could finish. But the stash I have not put, or the acquisitions I have not put away to somewhere that is not most accessible at the moment, I'll show you now. Both orders are from Sewrella. Ironically, so is one of the ones that's put away, but that's okay. The first one is 3 skeins. This was 3. I'm just gonna hold up one. This is, the colorway is Sausalito. It's a nice kind of like minty green color on the tweed DK base. It says it's from the library collection. She brought it back as a color of the week. So that's how I saw it. And I ordered 3 skeins. It is 85% superwash merino wool and 15% Donegal tweed nep. Obviously DK weight, tweed DK. And I have plans. I was gonna knit because I'm only buying yarn with a plan now. I was going to knit another Soulless DK that I featured on my last episode that I test knit for the Crayabea. It's either gonna come out in April or May. The test deadline is in April. So when it actually comes out, I'm not 100% sure. I was gonna knit another one of those, but then I realized when this came in that these are kind of the same tone. The one I finished and wore on my last podcast is blue, where this is more green, but I don't want 2 of the same shirt in just slightly different colors. So I think I'm gonna do a Tulsa tee instead. The yardage will still work. So that is my minor tweak to the original plan, and I think the tweed will make that Tulsa very, very fun. So, Tulsa tee. And it's in my maybe possibly get to in the next few months tub that I have easy access to. The other yarn that I'm also leaving myself easy access to is, again, from Sewrella for more summer type garments. Actually more so than DK weight t-shirt. This is from the pre-order she did for her greatest hits at the beginning of the year. And it came like weeks early. It wasn't estimated to ship until April 4th, and I got it last week. So we're very excited. This is the colorway Daunt Books from the Summer in London collection she did. And this is on the cotton linen wool base, which is a fingering weight. 60% superwash merino wool, 30% Pima cotton, 10% linen, 437 yards to 100 grams. And I bought this for a Rick Rack tee that I will try and pop there so you can see what I'm thinking about. But yeah, a nice summer fiber for a summer top. Last acquisition I have to show you is some Glinda. I have a skein of her mohair, Sewrella, again, still from the Oz collection, but again, this was part of the greatest hits pre-order, but she still had some of the labels from the Oz collection, so that's really cool. But this is Glinda on the mohair base, which is 82% mohair, 28% silk, 50 grams is 459 yards. And this is for the Rocket tee, which has a mohair striped with a solid of, you could do different colors, but I'm using the same color. So I got same colorway Glinda on the classic sock base, which ironically I would not use for socks because this is 100% superwash merino, and because it does not have nylon in it, that doesn't seem like a sock yarn. But anyways, that's my little pet peeve with some of these base names, with not Sewrella specifically, just in general. But this is 400 yards, 100 grams. And so I think that will be a fun lightweight, because this is 150 grams versus 200 grams versus almost 300 grams in my sweater. So yeah, some summer garments, hopefully to get knit up soon. Ironically, not in my immediate plans, though. If I cannot find my leftovers that I wanted to use to make the mini mock neck, I will probably cast on one of these. But that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed watching this, thank you so much for sticking around. I appreciate it so very much. I have gotten a handful of new subscribers. I'm just a little baby channel doing little baby things, but thank you so much for watching. If you did like this video, give it a like. Hit the subscribe if you want to see more of my chaos rambling, and I will see you next time. If you are interested in that crazy stash footage, stick around for another minute or so. Maybe not even a full minute. I don't remember how long that clip was. And you get an insight to the chaos behind the scenes. And I look forward to recording again soon. Thank you so much. Bye, friends. This chaos you see here is my yarn stash. I have somehow managed to misplace, lose, store somewhere I didn't think I meant to store it, some yarn. I was hunting for leftovers I wanted to use for my mini mock neck tank, and I can't find them. So the great stash reorg has begun. So I have 4 of these tubs that are meant to go like under the bed. They have wheels. Here, see? So I have 4 of those. One is back there, buried, and has my dinner on it. Yeah, so I'm going to reorganize, figure out my next few projects, and get things situated. And then that's what these 4 cubes are. Oh, hey, more yarn. That's organized. It knows what it's going to be, but these 4 cubes are meant to hold yarn. Someday these 2 as well, and then some of my books, not all of my books. But yeah, I've got quite the undertaking here with my stash, and I just thought I'd share as a little fun. Wish me luck. I had hoped to knit tonight. I don't see knitting in my future.